everyone. This is a new podcast that you see three guys putting together. It's called 6andOut. We've got Brett to the right of me in the yellow and black. Hi, Brett. And we've got Craig below there in the screen, just below me. Hi, Craig.
Hey, Arnie.
Hey. So we all love cricket, and we're three mates who generally get together, talk about cricket. We're in touch fairly regularly. So we thought to ourselves, with our love of cricket, and we do have other communities who chat with us as well, why don't we put together a podcast and just keep chatting about more cricket? And I guess other people can enjoy the stuff we get up to. So I guess we'll cover the tournaments of the day, what bugs us, what excites us. And, we get into the analysis. We've got a couple of great bloggers there in Craig and Brett. So they have their strengths in data analytics and just really, really good insight. So we'll get into stuff like that. And like I said, we just love cricket, so we're going to have a bit of chat about it. So I might allow Craig and Brett to give little intros about themselves. So why don't we start with you, Craig?
Yeah, cheers, Arnie. You've done a pretty good job there. I think the main difference between you guys and myself is I'm not Australian. I'm from Ireland. Which comes with its perks. But yeah, looking forward to chatting a wee bit more about cricket. I think today we have a few hot topics. There's actually a ton to talk about in cricket right now, so it's be exciting to get through it. Other things you should know about me, I guess. Weirdly, I am from Ireland, but I'm a bit of an England cricket sympathiser because growing up we had nobody else to watch, but a terrible England side on Channel 4 TV. So. I'll represent the England perspective when it comes to the Aussies on your side. So, and that's about it.
Great. Thank you. Brett, hello.
Yeah, g'day, guys. Excited to be here. It's I know we've been talking about doing something like this for a little while, but it's nice to finally make it happen and really just cool to be able to get on and just talk cricket with a couple of mates. For those who aren't familiar with me, you'll probably see me in the black and yellow kit fairly often. That's the ATCO Cricket Club, which is my local club over here. And I was basically born into. I would have gone to my first game to watch Dad play within probably 2 months of being born, and been there ever since. I've played for something like 22 years, and sort of can't get enough of it. But yeah, excited to get stuck in. Like Craig said, lots and lots of cricket going on, lots and lots of cricket coming up. So there's always going to be plenty to talk about.
Absolutely, and you'll get to learn a lot more about us through time as well. It's just even on the social side. Like for example, I'm on a road trip. I'm not going to cover that this time. This could possibly be a few minutes in another segment later on because trip around Australia. There's a lot going on there, and also there was. Hints of visiting a few cricket grounds as well, but that's for another day. So the lineup is really busy today. We're going to cover one particular series, England versus South Africa, and the talk of the town at the moment is the 100 competition based over in the UK. So we're going to cover a little bit about that as well. And as usual, because we're called 6andOut for many reasons, one of those reasons is we normally like to rate our favourite moment or thing, which we call a 6. You hit it out of the park, it's a great moment. Or we're not so happy about something, or we have a little bit of a moan about something, and that's the out part of it. So just to give you guys some context what that might mean. Without further ado, again, let's have a little bit of chat about England, South Africa. I might maybe get you, Brett, to give us a bit of a quick, I don't know if you want an overview and maybe just some insights and thoughts, and just to get us kicked off in chatter.
Yeah, no worries. It's basically we've had a combination of one days and T20 matches. There's still a few tests to come between South Africa and England, but I don't know. Going into this series, I sort of expected England just to sort of roll out and do a bit of a number on South Africa, to be honest. And I guess for a number of reasons, England just struggled a little bit, and it actually turned into a really good series that unfortunately, because of a bit of weather along the way, we didn't quite get to see the full length of the series. But the first match South Africa got off to a bit of a flyer, led by Rassie van der Dussen, hitting 134 off 117. Funnily enough, South Africa in that game posted a total of 333 without hitting a six, which I thought was pretty impressive. England didn't really sort of get into too much of out of second gear in terms of chasing that. They were always a fair bit off. Ended up getting bowled out fairly easily. But then it was a complete turnaround. England, in a rain-affected match, ended up making 201 in the second match and rolled South Africa for 83. And it was that kind of series. It just seemed like there weren't a lot of close games, particularly in the one-days. It was either sort of one or the other team being fairly dominant. And unfortunately, the third guy was rained out. Quinton de Kock left stranded on 92 not out. Didn't get any play after the 28th over. So it ended up as a 1-1 draw in the one-days. Then we moved on to the T20s, which was a little bit of the same. England started to find a bit more of a groove thanks to Johnny Bairstow. They posted 230 in their 20 overs in the first T20. South Africa made a reasonable fist of it, but ended up only being able to scrape together 193.
I seem to remember, just to interrupt, I seem to remember that being possibly both the luckiest and the unluckiest innings for Bairstow and South Africa. I think South Africa dropped him 7 times or something.
Right, yeah.
Like, their fielding was just atrocious.
It was. That was the game where I reckon in the space of 2 overs in the back end of the innings, South Africa dropped 4 or 5 catches and went for about 40 runs.
Did they lose that one? I'm just trying to remember. Did South Africa lose that?
Yeah. Yeah, they England made 234 in their 20 overs, which was probably about 30 runs more than they should have.
Yeah, that was the difference.
And in the end, South Africa made 190, but they were a long way off until Tristan Stubbs sort of came out at the end and he sort of piled on 72 off 28 balls.
Yeah, that's an exciting talent. I think it was was it Graham Smith or AB de Villiers? They said that between Tristan Stubbs and Dewald Brevis, like a really exciting future for South Africa. And even looking at some of the other guys who performed in that series who are not terribly old, you'd be thinking that they would still have the talent to contend at World Cups, finally break their duck and win a World Cup at some point. But very exciting young players coming out of that team.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I took out of that series overall is South Africa, at their best, can go toe-to-toe with pretty much anyone in the world. Like, this is a fairly strong, or a very strong English side. We know what they've done over a fairly long period of time under Owen Morgan. So to go to England and take it right up to them is very impressive.
Brett, that's a really good point you make there. And by the way, listeners of the podcast, this is how we work. We just feed off of each other. But you've made a really good point. South Africa have gone to England, played in English conditions, and on their day they can really take it up to them. Now, guys, for the ones that, a question, would you say their T20 side and their ODI side are fairly similar in calibre? I'm talking the South Africans here and the English. Or do you feel they are actually vastly different, well, squads for one, but number two, their quality? I know massive questions, but yeah.
I mean, on paper, I think I'd still take the English squad. But I think there's definitely a lot of talent in that South African squad. Like, we all know how good someone like Quinton de Kock is. getting Riley Russo back into the squad after 6 years out is pretty big for South Africa. And their bowling attack is probably a little bit underrated. Like, you're talking Kagiso Rabada, who's a genuine star. You've got Nokia, bowls wheels. Ngidi was probably one of the standouts for South Africa. His ability to bowl cutters into some slowish pitches was really impressive. And then they've got Shamsi, who for a while was the number one bowler in T20 cricket.
Yeah.
And another surprising one was Maharaj being able to continue his sort of, I wouldn't say development, but his transformation into not only a decent test bowler, but a really quite competent and dangerous white ball bowler as well.
Yeah, he was opening attack. Yeah, he was opening the bowling for them. I think I think post this series, I view South Africa, like Brad was saying, quite a bit differently. I think that they're much stronger than I would have given them credit for. I think if you look back, there probably was more going for South Africa in this series in terms of players in form and bowling well and batting well. When I look at England, I mean, you had Jason Roy, who was essentially out on an island by himself the entire series for both ODIs and T20s. There are enough people lining up in the background within the England setup to take that space should he hit some form. But in the same breath, Johnny Bairstow performed well in that. David Milan put in a good few knocks. Liam Livingstone was handy with the bat. I still think England overall are a stronger side. But to talk to what you said at the start, Brett, and what you covered as well, Arnie, is that looking back on England in white ball format, it's been a real fortress in that for them. Apart from the series which they lost to India, and now the series which they lost to South Africa in T20, there was one series where Australia beat them in 2020, I think. And the last time they were beaten on home soil in a series was like 2015. So it's been an absolute fortress for them, all from 2015 through to just before the World Cup, I think it was, which has kind of been the opposite to what their test form has been. And now there's been this role reversal where you change the captain, Joss Butler comes in, Owen Morgan goes out the door. And on paper, you don't think that's going to be a terrible loss because Owen Morgan had struggled a little bit with the bat, but obviously there's a little more on Joss's shoulders. He hasn't quite performed to the high standards he set in the IPL. But there's a little bit of food for thought for them heading into this World Cup in the autumn, more so than I think some would have thought. And if you're a South African fan, I think you're incredibly pleased with this performance and the outlook ahead of the World Cup with all the things that Brad just mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of just alluded to a question I was planning on asking you. Is it too early for there to be a little bit of heat on Butler as a captain? I mean, no doubts he can do the job, and I hope it's just a bit of an adjustment phase. But he's certainly played, even going back to the Indian series as well. He's played this sort of limited overs summer like someone with a lot of pressure on his shoulders. I guess my question is, how long do you give it for him to adjust to that role before you think, oh shit, maybe we're better off with a free-spirited, high-performing Butler rather than one that looks like the weight of the world's on his shoulders.
Yeah, and that was one of the concerns. I'll chat more about this later in the podcast, but I would make a terrible ECB chairman of selectors or management, because I thought Joss Butler could probably handle the T20 captaincy and that free spirit element. I thought looking at his form in the IPL and elsewhere, that T20 was really his game. He had it figured out. He knew what he needed to do, and his role with the bat was simplistic versus maybe something in Test cricket. And then on the other side of things, I kind of thought I had a concern around Ben Stokes being made England captain, because he performed so spectacularly in Test cricket at key high pressure moments that I was concerned, throwing the Test captaincy on top of him might be too much. But it kind of looks like it's the reverse. It kind of looks like Stokes is flourishing and in having that, setting a tone in the Test team to be able to say, look, we're going to lose games. It doesn't matter. We need to be able to try to put ourselves in a position and play cricket to win games. And it's maybe just a little bit early to start panicking about Jos Buttler, but I don't know. I don't think you met. It looks like he's carrying something a little extra that he wasn't perhaps in the IPL and in the other competitions.
Yeah, he's just playing like he's got extra tasks that he needs to deal with, as opposed to, well, I just focus on my own game and I let the captain do the captain's thing. So I do hear what you're saying, Brett, Craig. I still think it's early to tell, although T20 World Cup is around the corner, but I don't know what's ahead for the English team, but I'm sure they've got tons of practice matches and perhaps another tournament or two. But I'd probably give him another go. But because
sorry to interrupt you, Arnie. One thing that Michael Atherton said on, it was either one of the T20 games or the ODI games, was Jos Buttler's obviously a wicketkeeper, and I think Owen Morgan, whenever he was captain, the side would have been in the covers, so he would have been quite connected with the bowlers, and then in a T20 game, there things change around, especially when the side's chasing. Things change quite quickly around 2 or 3 deliveries. If you're hit for 3 boundaries in a row, it's time for a change, or the game gets out of hand. So Michael Atherton made a point where somebody like a Chris Jordan who feels I think it's mid on or mid off.
Because
I can't remember.
He's so focused on wicket keeping as well. There's stuff going on. He's got to do this, got to do that, and then he's got a captain. So I get it.
Yeah. I think relying when you have a wicket keeper who's a captain, and especially when the fast bowlers are on, you're quite a bit away from your bowler and talking to them and hearing what they're thinking and strategizing. So I think that's where somebody like a Chris Jordan, who has every tool in the box from the bowling department, a ton of experience. I think perhaps maybe the solution to the captaincy on the fielding side of things is to lean more on those kind of individuals. And they've been around the setup for a long time to know whether that'll work or not. But I thought that was an interesting point from Atherton.
It's a good point. Maybe with Jos, and maybe these guys have already discussed it with the coach and all that, but when they're in batting mode, Jos can captain, right? When it's batting time, Jos can captain, let him captain fully. But when they're fielding, he'll probably have to rely on a few other leaders on the field and just kind of go with them a little bit, because like you said, they're all experienced. They just have a loose game plan, but for the quick reactions, they'll probably lean on the vice captain or like the leading bowler, the natural leader in the bowling squad. I don't know, but
there was one quite perplexing thing that Buttler did, and I can't remember if it was in the second ODI or the second T20 or the one that got rained out, whereas Moeen Ali came on after the first change. So I think Topley and perhaps Jordan or Willie bowled the first couple of overs, and it got to over 5, 6, 7. Moeen Ali comes in, immediately takes an important wicket. I think he was 1 for 4, and I don't think we saw him for the rest of the innings. And Rashid came on slightly after him, but it was a bit perplexing that spin works straight away. They stop the flow of runs, they take the wicket, and they bring in, I think it was Topley after, or Jordan right after that. And
that was just the third T20. And I agree. The only thing I could think of was a matchup type thing where with Hendricks and Markram in, they didn't want to bowl an off spinner on that. It was a smallish ground. It's the only thing I could think of in terms of they didn't want 2 right-handers hitting with the spin.
Yeah, you're right, Brett. They may have already pre-game made decisions, like they've done the research of saying if so-and-so comes on, you're going to bowl. And maybe they were just very hard line about it, and they didn't go with the flow as much. And it talks to your point, Craig. And they probably were quite hard line about it, or structured about it, I should say, because you've got Jos Buttler on the other end, wicket keeping. So it's like they just immediately stuck to the structure or whatever they'd organised pre-planned. So it's really good insights actually. Another random question I'll throw at you both is, based on what you've seen of this series, just for both England and South Africa, with the T20, and we're just talking T20 format, with the T20 World Cup fast approaching, where would you rank them in terms of number in the world? Where would you think they may finish up? I know it's so early and it's just purely speculation, but guys, what do you reckon where England are at right now and South Africa would, in terms of finishing in the World Cup, just on today's observations?
So I'll say that I think I think Pakistan are incredibly overlooked. So I'm gonna give you the top 5 here. I think Pakistan are incredibly overlooked. I think they're number one, and I think they're number one by a distance actually.
Wow.
I think then you would have controversial. You can attack me for that later. I then would have the Aussies. The Aussies are going to be in Australia. That's going to help them a lot. Again, I think they're underappreciated. Then I would have India just because of their depth of talent. Then England. Then probably South Africa. That would be my top 5, and then
I don't think you're too far off the mark there, to be honest. Cricket in Australia, a little bit different to cricket in England or even India for that matter, just in terms of the size of the grounds. I know purely because it's in Australia, I've probably still got the Aussies as the number 1 seed. Pakistan, India, England, I've all got grouped pretty closely as a chasing pack. I think different parts of each of those sides stack up well, and it could, like, it's sitting on the fence, but it's going to come down to who plays well over the 2 months. But like someone like Pakistan, they've got probably the best batsman in the world, plus a very strong sort of pace bowling attack, which will stand up pretty well in Australian conditions. The power in the English batting order, pretty well suited to some flatter but harder pitches in Australia. But bigger grounds are maybe a little bit of a concern for them, but not as much as the bowling attack. It's if they don't get Wood or Archer fit, I think they might struggle a little bit. Just that sort of stock standard medium fast bowler can tend to be, if the ball's not moving, a bit of cannon fodder like on Australian pitches. If you get a good pitch at basically any ground in Australia and you're bowling 135 k's an hour and not moving the ball, then good luck. Like, doesn't matter how big the grounds are, it's not going to be big enough.
Yeah, they need to have a response to the Starks and the Afridis and the Norkeys of other teams. Yeah. And you're right, they don't have that. They don't have that individual fit right at the moment. And Pakistan actually. Do
you reckon Archer will be fit?
He has had another injury setback, has he? I'm not sure if it's elbow or ankle or something like that, but I feel like every time he gets to that last 6 weeks of his treatment where he joins the squad, there's another injury. But not to go too far down the rabbit hole, I think there's a decision to be made there in terms of, I think his Test career's over, which is really sad because it was a phenomenal viewing to see that Ashes and him and Smith go head to head. The fact we'll probably not see that again is quite disappointing. I think his Test career's over, and I think you have to limit him to probably T20s if he gets back and fit at all. It must be so frustrating for the lad.
Craig, what's that based on? I'm quite interested. Is it because there's too much depth, and because he's been injured for so long, he's not going to get a look in?
Yeah, I think he's played a lot of T20 cricket. I think his body is just, like I said, there's probably a list of 5 or 6 injuries that he has had over the last couple of years. And I think that wrapping him up in cotton wool to get the best out of him in his best format, for me, is the best option. I tend
to agree with that. I just think he's with his injury history now, it'd need a fairly big turnaround to be able to front up to bowling 20 overs a day in a test match over a series without breaking down. And then they're going to want him in the one-day side or the T20 side. So
that's a good point. Just focus him on one format and get the most out of him.
Yeah, so I just looked it up there. He's 27 years old, and in May he was ruled out for the season with a stress fracture in the lower back, which is probably, a nightmare injury for a bowler like himself. He had the yeah, exactly.
It's really
we all know one
exactly.
And then he had the elbow injury before that. So it's just, I think I don't want to be dramatic and say his test careers are over, put the gravestone in the ground and, the dates either side of his name. But that seems tough to come back from at 27 years old. Maybe you give him 2 years, he's 29.
Yeah.
Traveling the world, playing, bowling 20 overs, 30 overs if you're getting batted under the table by somebody for a couple of days in a row. It just seems tough.
And who's saying that you'd never be a good ECB selector? You're doing the work right now, mate. So just to bring it back for a bit of a wrap up on England, South Africa, Brett, Craig, how would you rate it out of 10? I mean, as a series, both the T20 and the ODIs wrapped into just like the tour. What would you give it, guys?
For me, I've got it as you can just see my dog's decided to come for a walk in the background there. Marv.
It's like, Brett, because we're pretty relaxed on the podcast, it just brings me back to that really serious NBC or CNN thing where the guy's talking is really serious and then the kid walks in and then the mum has to drag the kid out. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, in terms of the overall series, I really did actually enjoy it. It became a lot more competitive than I thought it was going to be. I'd probably give it a solid sort of 7.5.
Okay.
I'd go with a 7. Could have been higher if it wasn't for the English weather that curtailed a couple of the games and stopped us getting a full result in the one-day series.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I'll be boring and agree with a 7 out of 10 as well. I think in each of the 3 T20s there was an interesting case where you had an individual who was taking or attempting to take the game away from the other team, Bairstow, de Kock and Stubbs, with some real power hitting. So weather aside, I think that was the most interesting thing about it for me.
Lovely. So look, we're about 20 or so minutes in. Now we're going to talk about another thing, like I said, the talk of the town, the flavour of the times, and that's the 100, and that's a series that begins literally in under 10 hours or something like that for season 2. I'll do my best to give a very quick overview based on what I understand. The 100 is based on 100 balls versus a T20, which is 120 balls. 5 ball per over. However, if you have a bowler, the captain can ask the bowler to bowl 10 balls, which are 2 overs consecutively, and then they've got to swap sides. The team with the most runs wins. Have I missed anything, guys?
No, I think that's a pretty good overview. There's 8 teams. One thing. Let's go back to my petition or application for ECB chairman. I think when I first heard about the 100, I was disappointed. I didn't think it really was what the game needed for the ECB to consistently talk about protecting Test cricket. And this is obviously it's been a topic for the last decade and a half to try and protect Test cricket, and then say that, and then to come out with this new shorter format whenever you already have all the T20 franchises across the world, you have T20 internationals. I think I was a little disappointed. But it's sold incredibly well. I think I'd said in my last blog that 50 odd % of the tickets last year that were bought for the 100 were bought by people who had never bought a ticket to a county cricket ground, which is incredible. And I think part of the reason why people did that was the double header, which is a great idea, where you have the ladies. Sorry, there's 8 franchises, and there's a male team and a female team, or men's and ladies for each franchise. Yeah. And the Birmingham Phoenix will play the Northern Superchargers on the same day, and you'll have the men in the morning, and then the ladies in the afternoon. I think that was fantastic. So I have to take their hat off to them on that. But
it's perhaps I think they packaged it, Craig. Maybe the crowd were hungry for some shorter format, and it was great marketing, and they were just hungry for cricket, and maybe the way they packaged it, it just worked. So I don't know. I'm speculating, right?
Or maybe they were just desperate to get out of the house after being locked up for a year as the COVID lockdowns.
All the above.
We'll see. I did last night. I watched back some of the highlights, and the crowd for the games, especially the evening games, was fabulous. You could really sense the atmosphere there. When there was a wicket, there was a proper celebration. When there was a six, there was a proper celebration. It looked like a cracking atmosphere, I have to say.
Guys, as you mentioned, there's 8 teams. We'll keep talking a little bit more about 100, and then we'll get stuck in a few different areas. But it goes without saying, as we start talking about the 100, and there's 8 teams, I should try to bring them up. I don't have them up here, but can I first ask? Actually, I'll just read them out, unless some of you guys can rattle them off. Right, I've got them here. Birmingham, as you said, Birmingham Phoenix, the London Spirit. Well, this is very small. Manchester Originals. Yep. Northern Superchargers. This is really small. The Over Invincibles, Southern Brave, Trent Rockets, and a Welsh team, Welsh Fire. So they're the 8 teams. Before we get stuck into it, we've all got our own teams that we've chosen, I suspect, for the season, but hopefully for life. We'll start with you, Brett. Did you have a hard time choosing your team, and what did you end up with?
It was a little bit tricky, to be honest. Like, looking through some of the squad, you can sort of see lots of common names, like lots of really familiar names, lots of Australian representation, which is always nice. Like, you look at a side like the Manchester Originals, and they, on paper, look like they're going to be really hard to beat. So it would have been easy to sort of jump on with those guys, but for some reason I kept finding myself drawn back to the Trent Rockets, and I think in hindsight it's probably got the a little bit of a strikers connection there. I've got Rashid Khan, got Alex Hales, played a couple of seasons at the Strikers.
Your favourite import?
Yeah, and Ian Cobain, who played a really nice role for the Strikers last season as well, coming in about halfway through and replacing George Garton, who was not real flash. We'll put it that way. He's not my favourite Strikers player ever.
So
but yeah, I'm on the particularly on the men's side. I think I'm on board with the Trent Rockets.
There you go. All right. Well, we'll see how that goes. For good luck to your team for the season, Brett. Craig, what about you?
Well, firstly, I'll say 100 franchises for life, not just for Christmas. You can't just abandon them at the end of the season and choose a new one next year. So
it's like
I'm going for the exactly, yeah. So I'm going for no reason whatsoever, the Oval Invincibles. I happen to quite like their kit. I actually quite like the Trent Rockets kit. I think the Trent Rockets probably have the best. For those listening that haven't seen them, go and look up the 100 jerseys. They have the best ugly but somehow not ugly jerseys you've seen. I would definitely go and look them up. They're great. I think the Oval Invincibles for a number of reasons, which we might talk about in a second.
Yeah, we'll talk about all that in a minute. Like, I might get you guys, for example, to talk about who you think are some of your star players in your squads. And yeah, we'll get to that. I guess for me, I've chosen the Northern Superchargers. It wasn't a very hard decision because I'm a massive Leeds United fan in the English Premier League. My other half is from Yorkshire, so it's an absolute no-brainer. Northern Superchargers, all the way. They've got nice purple, a royal purple. So I mean, you're in England, a royal, royalty, royal purple. So anyway, so that's my team, and again, it's one of those things you choose a team, you build emotional connections with that team, and it's for life. So good luck to all three of us. And might add, I'm not saying we're locked into this, but we may. We were talking a little bit off air earlier, but this could be an ice bucket challenge all in itself for the end of the season. Do you know what I mean? So I hope you guys remember how nice and cold it was from the last competition, and fingers crossed. I don't have to experience that for this competition.
Yeah. Get the step ladder ready, Brett.
The step ladder's still there, apparently, right?
It's still there. Hasn't moved. It's waiting for the bronze statue to be delivered.
Oh my!
For those who are unaware, Brett and I in our last competition between the three of us lost. So I do my ice bucket challenge in Florida in sweltering 40-degree heat, which was really refreshing. Whereas Brett, I'm not sure what temperature it was with you, but Arnie had to get on top of a step ladder and give you the full cooler treatment. You got the ice, the water.
I dropped the cooler on him.
It looks like there were beers in there and all sorts, man.
Yeah,
the full ice blocks. Yeah. Like they didn't melt. It was that cold. They didn't melt. They just.
It was. I reckon it was a maximum of about 8 degrees that day. It was the middle of winter over here, and it was about 10 o'clock at night. Arnie and I had already been out for dinner. We caught up on his road trip, and like, oh well, we better get this ice bucket done. It's not often you're going to get a chance to do it live.
Yes, or just have another, for lack of a better word, another captain in this case, or we're called wordsmiths in another world, sort of another NFT cricket world, and we had this cricket challenge. Yes, so it was just opportune that I happened to be on my road trip, happened to be going past town, got to see our good mate Brett, and what a privilege it was to pour an ice bucket. You don't get to do that thing every day, because if you did, you'd probably get decked or punched or sworn at. So,
or hypothermia and breast case.
Yeah, no, it was fun. So anyway, as a side topic, just park that to the side. It could be something we could just give us incentive to avoid, keep cheering our team on, and really hope that they don't finish below the other two teams. Yeah. So, just as I hinted before, unless we've got some stuff exactly on the list there, guys, but before we go there, just because we've picked our 3 teams and we can't cover every team, but we might as well just initially cover. There is a game tonight, but just more about your teams. Brett and Craig, hopefully you guys have access to the squads in front of you on your screens. What would you say? Give a shout out to, say, your top talents in both your men's and your women's squads. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I think Riley Russo in Men's Invincibles is going to be incredibly interesting to watch in the batting department. Will Jacks as well, who I think will be a new name to folks who are not following the English domestic game very closely. He shot to fame in about 2019 when he hit a 25-ball 100 in a warm-up game in Dubai or something like that. So he had a pretty tasty T20 blast season. So I think both of those guys in the batting side of things, and then in the bowling department, I'll be honest with you, Reece Topley, who is obviously in phenomenal form.
Yeah. And
then there's a guy who we'll talk about in a second called Mohammed Hasnain, who's 22 and can bowl at 96 miles an hour. So that's perked my ears up.
Okay. Awesome.
Chris?
Before you go ahead, what about the women's, just quickly? Oh, you're on mute.
I'll have to get the squads up here.
Okay, well, we'll let Brett have a chat then, and then we'll come back to you.
Yeah, all right. So
the Trent Rockets.
Yeah, Trent Rockets. It looks like there's going to be a fair bit of firepower at the top of the order. We've got Joe Root contracted. I don't think he's actually going to play. If he does, it's only going to be 1 or 2 games before he heads off on test duties. But when you're talking a batting lineup that's probably going to have Colin Munro and Alex Hales at the top of the order, that sets a standard for a pretty sort of destructive pairing. Then Dawood Milan, who I think is currently not number 3, maybe number 4 in the T20 batting rankings. So yeah, there's a fair bit of strength at the top of the order for the Rockets, and then any side that's got Rashid Khan in it is always going to be a handful with the ball. Marchant DeLang has built himself a pretty decent career, sort of playing over in county cricket while they were able to, and one that I've sort of got a bit of an eye on is Daniel Sams coming in as the overseas wild card from Australia.
There you go.
He's again, I do tend to keep an eye on the Aussies around the place, but even towards the back end of the IPL, he really started to prove himself in some of these domestic competitions. That handy left arm bowler, lots of variations, can bowl at the death, can bowl up front and swing the ball, but also really, really handy with the bat, hits a big ball.
Yeah, okay.
And
he was quite trusted. Side, oh, sorry, I was going to say he was quite trusted in the IPL. He's the Mumbai Indians, right? He was quite trusted in terms of consistently getting a spot in that team, which was interesting given the talent they had.
Yeah, exactly. Like in the squad that the Mumbai Indians had, it was somewhat of a surprise to see him get as much game time as he did, and I think the more game time he got, the more he kind of flourished.
I agree. Who wants to talk about their women's team quickly?
Yeah.
Well, sorry, go ahead. I'll jump in and say that the Oval Invincibles do have the reigning MVP in is it Dane or Deanna Van Niekerk? So she won the MVP award last year. So I think in the ladies side of things, just given the fact that the men's and ladies games are obviously in different eras, professional eras, I think the true travelling professional cricketer in the ladies' side or the women's side is going to garner greater returns than maybe in the men's game, just because the difference.
Upside just to keep bringing women's cricket into like the Commonwealth Games and just most recently some of these competitions. I didn't know a lot about women's cricket, let's say 6 months ago, and I feel like I know a lot more players now. I feel a lot more connection to a lot of these women players, and I'm not talking the Aussie women cricketers, but just more and more of the world cricketers, and I feel really quite proud of that. So, yeah. Shall I talk about the Northern Superchargers quickly?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so Northern Superchargers, it's looking more of the men's side, talk about the men's side, it's looking more of a supercharged, pun intended, supercharged bowling side, although I'll just mention a couple of big names. You got Faf du Plessis as the captain, and he's quite proven in the short format in the IPL, for example, so I'm really glad to have him. Then there's Dwayne Bravo, and hence when I talk about bowling firepower, we've got Matthew Potts, Adil Rashid, Wahib Riaz, we've got Ben Stokes, David Weiss and David Willey. That's the men's side. So I'm quite excited about the men's squad, and hopefully they'll go far. Just for the I'm going to talk about that later. It's actually one of my outs, but I won't talk about it here. As for the women squad, some pretty exciting names there as well. Heather Graham, the Aussie cricketer. You've got Elisa Healy, not in good form at the moment, but still happy to have her playing for the Superchargers. Who else? Jemima Rodriguez, and Laura Woolvart. So I'm pretty happy with the women's squad as well. So I mean, you never know. So I have good hope.
Yeah, I really rate Laura Woolvart. I think she's a quality player. Seems to always put her head above water when her team is struggling a wee bit. That's a quality pickup there.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to it this season and see what they can produce. I mean, yeah, pretty excited. So, did you guys have anything more to say before I go to the next bit in the 100 that we've got on the list here? Okay, so the next question we've got here is, other than us being very biased, and we can choose our own teams, but who will win? Which is your six, six and out, the good, out's not so good. One team from each of us, the men's and women's, that is our proverbial six ahead of the tournament. Can be based on team quality or just your gut.
All right, so I'm going to set the stall out first on the men's side of things. I've picked the Oval Invincibles as my six. I think they're going to win it this year, and I see this team as like the agents of chaos. I mean, I really think that they are the most exciting team on paper, both in terms of things that could go fantastically well and things that could go fantastically wrong. A bit of drama. So they get into that. We already talked about Riley Russo. He had 600 odd runs in the T20 Blast. He is in incredible form. Brett alluded to the fact that he's back in the South African setup. Great start there. Will Jacks, we just talked about as well. So they're both in fantastic T20 form up the top of the order. In terms of the bit of the drama, Jason Roy is going to be in there too. Jason Roy obviously not in great form, but if he does find any sort of form, you've got three lads there who could take away a game in a heartbeat. And there'll be a bit of drama if he doesn't get into form. We're talking about whether he's going to go to the World Cup or not. So again, chaos at the top of the order. Then Sam Billings is captain. I wouldn't describe him as an agent of chaos. I think he might be more of a cup of tea kind of lad. But he's captain. He's fine. I wouldn't get out of bed to go watch Sam Billings bat. But in terms of a captain, I'm sure he'll do a great job. And then we'll get into the bowling side of things. Sunil Narine, who's a crafty little leg spinner, did very well in the 100 last time round. He should be quite economical. Reece Topley, who Mr. Volatility, he's just shot out of nowhere to be one of the better white ball bowlers in cricket over the last 2 months. So really love that he's in the team. He's also not in the England Test squad to face South Africa, so he's not going to get called up to go play the red ball form of cricket. And then Captain Chaos himself. We talked about him a little bit at the start of this section. Mohammed Hasnain. This guy, he's 22. He's lived 3 lifetimes in cricket already. At the age of 19, he went to the CPL and has the fastest ever delivery bowled in the CPL at 96 miles an hour. He was 19 years old. Perhaps unsurprisingly, shortly after, he was cited for a suspect bowling action, so he was out of cricket for a while. So somehow he's back playing in the 100, and I can't wait for him to bowl and for everybody to either go, holy, he's rapid, or hang on, lad, are you actually bowling
suspect
legal?
Action.
Exactly.
Basically, everyone's going to say that don't support his team.
Yeah, and they can. There's the door. Mohammed Hasnain is here to stay.
There you go.
He's going to provide. Sign me up for that guy. I guess in terms of the only downside is we did have the Invincibles had Shamsi last year, who he's a quality white ball bowler, which Brett alluded to earlier. So that's a bit of a loss to the Trent Rockets. But yeah, that's I've set my stall out. The Oval Invincible Massive can join me now in supporting who I'm dubbing the agents of chaos.
For the men and women's, Craig?
For the women's, I've actually got the Birmingham Phoenix. So Elise Perry, who should probably be on the Mount Rushmore of greatest sports people ever, in my opinion. I mean, she is the true all-round sports star. Really, it can only really be represented in sports that are moving from more of an amateur level to professional level. But the fact that she's been able to perform so well in soccer, cricket, I mean, she'd probably do 100 other things as well. Mm-hmm. And like we talked about at the start, I think those all-rounders who can perform in multi-facets in the ladies or the women's side of things are going to give their team a massive edge. They've also got Sophie Devine, who's got bags of experience in there. They got Sophie Molyneux, who has very, very accurate spin bowling, which is and crafty stuff, which will be important economically. And then finally, Izzy Wong, who just made her debut for England in the Test setup, who's caught my eye. Not so much for any performance in the cricket field I've seen, but much like Mohammed Hasnain, she has put it out there into the ether that she wants to be the fastest women's bowler in history. Right. So sign me up for that as well.
Yeah,
so
look,
that's
if you talk like that, then you've got someone to aim for, right? Whereas others just play. So yeah, that's good. So Birmingham Phoenix for the women and the Oval Invincibles for the men's. Good luck to you, Craig. What about you, Brett?
Yeah, well, on the men's side, obviously would like to see the Trent Rockets go well. And I did mention them before, but I do see the Manchester Originals being pretty hard to beat. Like, you go down the list and you're talking, it's a list that isn't going to have a hell of a lot of change through the tournament. Like, it's going to be pretty solid. There's no one who's any real danger of getting called up to their national side during the tournament at all. And you're starting off with Joss Butler, who I think will relish the opportunity to go back and play some domestic cricket and play against, I guess, a little bit lower standard of cricketer than he has been for the last few weeks. And then, I guess, the guy who's the sort of quintessential T20 or short format globe-trotting gun for hire, and Andre Russell gives you a pretty good 1-2 punch. But then you go down the list, Phil Salt, Wanindu Hasaranga, who is a genuine star, and even someone like Jamie Overton, who hits a big ball when he bats, bowls at a reasonable kind of click. Matt Parkinson with the ball, bowls some handy spin. I think they've just got a good amount of depth right across the board. I think they're going to be the only one. They'll be missing Ollie Robinson. He's made his way back into the test squad, but I think they're going to be hard to beat.
Okay.
Rich Gleeson comes in as their domestic wild card, who is sort of basically out of the Vitality Blast and even a bit of the 100 last year, has sort of shot his way into the England setup. So yeah, I think they're going to be pretty strong the whole way around.
And your women's?
The women, the one I really like is the Southern Brave. Like, you go down that list, it's basically you could field a top 6 or 7 that is pretty well a national standard side, like Danny Wyatt, Sophia Dunkley, Mandana from India, which actually I did raise an eyebrow that in the women's side, some of the Indian women have been allowed by the BCCI to sign up. We know that obviously doesn't happen with their men into the other domestic competitions. But then a couple of Aussies in there as well. Amanda Jade Wellington, who actually saw her up close playing a little bit of indoor cricket not too long ago, and she bowls probably just as well in that when she's bowled sort of just going through the motions as she does.
Random fact. She loves Pokemon.
She certainly made a couple of the batsmen at the indoor centre look pretty silly.
Oh, wow.
And Talia McGrath, who I think is on a massive upwards trajectory in terms of her cricket altogether. She's currently holding Elise Perry out of the Australian side, which is no mean feat considering the rap that Craig gave her just before. But I think it's the Southern Brave for me and the women.
Okay. So from my perspective, just quickly, because I realise we've got about 7 minutes left and we've got a few more things to cover, but we'll get through them, just because this is my first ever season. I didn't really know what the 100 was not that long ago, so I don't have any great insights other than saying I want the Northern Superchargers to win because, that side looks all right. I think Faf, because he doesn't have international duties, he'll be a solid captain for the side for the whole season. So that's got to count for something. He's not sort of what do you call he's proven. So I'm going to have to go with that. And again, just because I've not gone into the depth of the other teams. And similarly, I'd like the women's side to be the Northern Superchargers, although I've kind of heard what you both have been talking about, and I'm more convinced with Brett's rap on the Southern Braves. So I'm kind of going to go with Northern Superchargers and the Southern Braves for men's and women's. So that's our 6 as far as who we think will win. Who do you reckon is going to finish last, guys? And this will just be really quick because I'm mindful of time.
Yeah, so quickly, I think in the men's side of things, the London Spirit are going to struggle. They finished bottom last year. And just generally, when you look through that squad, you kind of think to yourself, sorry, who's that? I don't know who that is. I mean, I try to follow the English domestic game as much as I can, but even their stars are, you have Owen Morgan, who's just retired from international cricket. He obviously will still have something in the tank. He's a quality batsman, but he's winding down his career. Zach Crawley is another one of the big names for them, which I'm not convinced in Zach Crawley. Watch him go make a double hundred for against South Africa shortly, but he will be away on Test duty. Mason Crane is tidy spin for them, and then Glenn Maxwell, who's probably the biggest name on their squad. I suspect he'll probably get the call from Australia to go down in Zimbabwe, possibly, because he's kind of on. Yeah, I think he'll not play the full games, and I think they're just lacking. I don't get excited when I see their team versus some of the other guys who have those guns for hire that Brett was talking about, who will be there playing all of the games and are in a bit of form right now. So that's my out on the men's side.
Yeah, we'll just do it for the men's, I think. Brett, what about you, buddy?
I reckon the Welsh Fire are going to struggle. Like, they kick us off tonight in the first game, but looking at that list, they would just, some of their top line talent just isn't going to be available often enough for them, I don't think. Like, Johnny Bairstow's pulled out. He was only going to be available for a couple of matches.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ollie Pope's in the test squad again. Zampa will miss the back end of the tournament when he heads back to link up with the Australians. David Miller, not available early days with his South African commitments. I just don't think they're going to have enough of their top-end talent available often enough.
Okay. Watch them play tonight then, Brett.
Yeah, the only, I guess, sort of asterisk I'll put on that is I am a big fan of Tom Banton. I would like him to do well, but I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him and probably Ben Duckett to drive a lot of the batting without some of these, like some of their premium top-end batsmen.
Yeah, and you make a really good point, because if you got players coming in and out of the side, not purely on form, but based on international commitments and stuff, it's really difficult to find that dynamic and rhythm and unity with a team to just literally play like a team. So what you'll probably find is just inconsistency all the way through this season. They might have brilliant matches and they'll just, I don't know, massive collapse. I don't know. So I'm just making all that up, but it's probably a good point. I don't have a side, and because I'm going to use the cop-out statement of I haven't researched this enough. It's my first season, so I'm not going to put the what's the word? I don't want to put the moz, as we say in Australia, put the moz on one of the teams, because it's certainly not the Northern Superchargers. They're going to finish last, right?
Yeah, that's an automatic ice bucket for you, Arnie. I'm chalking that in.
Well, I'll have to pick a team. I'm just literally rolling. Actually, I will pick a team just because it's like rolling the dice. I'm going to say, and with no research whatsoever, I'm going to go. I was going to say the Oval Invincible. How about we'll go the London Spirit. We'll go the London Spirit. Yeah. All right. Now, look, I'm going to bring something up on my screen. It's something that our good mate Craig has mentioned. So there are sponsors on the jerseys of each of the 8 teams. Craig's kindly supplied this very concise list for us. Now, as you cast your eyes over it, folks. What we're doing, the three of us, is we're going to pick who do we think is the best sponsor based on the snack quality alone, just for something fun. So,
just as an intro, have you and Brett tried any of these snacks? Do you even know what they are?
Yeah,
I've tried a couple.
Oh, okay. I've only tried McCoy's, which is the chips or the crisps. I've not heard of the others, to be fair. But so again,
McCoys and Tyrrells are the only ones I've had.
Ah, there you go. And what about you, Craig? Have you know
Oh,
all of them? You've eaten all of them?
I'm an expert. I've been eating these since I was 4 years old, Arnie. I'm the voice. I'm the voice on everything you see before you.
There you go.
And I will be judging
for all of them.
100%. I'll be judging you based on the snacks. Just for those that are not familiar, these are semi-iconic snacks in the UK. And when they first announced the sponsors and you saw the jerseys and you saw the sponsors, there was an element of comedy to it when you saw some of these sponsors on there. So I thought it'd be a fun idea to have Brett and Arnie choose who's going to win the sponsor war, I guess, is the snack war.
On that, Craig, we'll let you kick off then. What would...
No, that's going to be cheating. You guys have to pick first, and then I'm going to repeat.
How about I start for once?
The true king of snacks are. Yeah, you go ahead.
I'm going to choose the Manchester Originals McCoys because, for a couple of reasons. One, because that's the only one I've heard of, and some of the other names are just downright scary. Number two is McCoys. When I had those, the branding and the packaging of it all, I guess it's branding, for lack of a better word, looked very familiar to another famous brand called Lay's chips, which happens to be my surname. So again, that is the reason why I've chosen McCoys as the best sponsor for the Manchester Originals in this case. There you go. Then over to you, Brett.
I'll reserve judgment until Brad has his turn.
Yeah, well, I guess the only other one that I've tried on there is the Tyrrells. Am I saying that right, Craig? Is it Tyrrells or is it Tyrrells?
Yeah, we'll go Tyrrells.
They're can't half tell that they're English though when you see them in the shops over here. They have a very distinctive packaging. Like a lot of the crisps or chips over here tend to be sort of in your face packaging. The packaging of the Tyrrells just tends to be that little bit more sedated, we'll say. I don't know, but skips seem like they'd be kind of fun to eat just looking at that description there though, so I'll go with them.
Which one, Skips or Tyrrells?
Yeah, I'll go with Skips. I know Tyrrells, but I've had them and they're a pretty standard chip.
It's also your team, your club.
Yeah. Skips look like they'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, it does sound pretty good, actually. All right, Craig, drum roll.
All right, so you've done pretty well, actually. I'm proud of you, lads. The king of the snacks is obviously McCoy's. Arnie, you did a fantastic job there. They have possibly the best salt and vinegar chips you've ever had. They got real structure to them. We're not talking about these flimsy little potato chips like you mentioned Lay's. I'm sorry, there's no structure to those. You got to have a good rigid structure. You could build a house with McCoy's chips. Like they're solid. The flavor's good. I would have them number one.
And they have a good crunch, which from memory McCoy's do have.
Yeah, and they have a is it like a beef and tomato flavor or something that. You don't have to spend 3 hours making a Sunday roast. You just have a bag of McCoy's and you're sorted. So
if it was only that easy, Craig. But then they don't call you Craig Snacks for nothing.
That is it. I'm king of the snacks. I think then, Brad, I think in terms of what you picked, Skips. Yeah, look, Skip, you're putting yourself out there as a wild card, Brad, and I respect that. Right, Skips are something that there's nothing else like them. Probably for a good reason, but they are iconic. They're kind of like a prawn cocktail flavored, like star shaped crisp. But that it literally does melt on your tongue. It just like it kind of fizzes up. I would have been incredibly disappointed in either of you if you'd selected Palm Bear. That is the clear gutter snack of all the snacks out there. So as long as you stayed away from the teddy bear shaped potato chip brands,
that's the first thing I'm going to buy when I go to the UK. All right, guys, we've actually gone over, but I'm going to still persist through because we are obviously having a lot of fun. We've got to keep pushing through. But clearly, Craig, this was clearly your segment because you are the snack king. You reckon it's McCoy's? Well, there you go. Well done. All right, so I'll take that off the screen. So we're going to wrap up now. And what we do is we have as a general thing, our namesake, 6andOut. So just very quickly, again, just on time. Each of us will say our general 6 and our out of the week, and then we'll leave it at that, and we'll get you guys to look forward to the next podcast. We'll start with you, Brett.
So my 6, I'm going a little bit outside of the box here, but something that did catch my eye during the week. I'm giving my 6 to Gustave McKeon from the French cricket side. Had a massive week. He's only a teenager. He had a massive week in the regional qualifiers in the European T20. The 18, his first match, 76 off 54 balls, and then followed that up with 2 tons in a row. But to really appreciate that, you've got to go and try and find some of these highlights. Like they weren't playing on big grounds, but some of the sixes he hit were genuinely brutal, and they went miles. Like they were sixes on proper grounds.
There you go.
So he's my 6 of the week. My out of the week, and it pains me to do this because I don't like taking aim at some genuine greats, but Meg Lanning. I don't know if anyone saw, but she dropped a hat-trick ball off Alana King
Yes.
in the Commonwealth Games at first slip, and it was a bit of a sitter, to be honest, as well. It was sort of just hip high, sort of what you'd call as close to a regulate. Like there's no such thing as a regulation slips catch. They're all pretty hard, but it was probably as close as you could get to a regulation slips catch, and she's put down the hat-trick of Alana King.
I know.
That might be the worst feeling in all of cricket.
I know.
Like,
I can't even say sorry to that. Sorry's not enough.
Yeah, at least when you're out for a golden duck, it's just, you haven't hurt anything about think one ball and being disappointed for yourself, but dropping a hat trick.
I don't want to get distracted, but it reminds me of Zampa. He nearly got a hat trick in, I think was it during the T20 World Cup or something last year, and I can't remember who dropped it, but he was on a hat trick as well, and that's the same sinking feeling. It's like I just nearly got a hat trick in the T20 World Cup, but one of my mates, he just dropped it, and I won't have that chance again.
I think that was Matty Wade, and they didn't actually realise he was on a hat-trick at the time until after he dropped the catch.
That's why I love you guys. You guys have got the stats. You've got the photographic memory. You bring up stuff that make me really, really help me out, and I keep coming up with questions. But I love your memories. That's awesome. Good on you. Meg
Lanning gets my out for dropping a hat-trick ball.
There you go. They're pretty solid, actually. Thank you. Craig, how about yourself?
Yeah, you might have seen my celebrate in the background because I had the young Frenchman Gustave McKeon, who somehow manages to have both a German first name and an Irish surname, but play cricket for France. I don't know how that works, but I'm gonna claim him as an Irishman in disguise. But yeah, he was phenomenal. He also took 3 for 27 in the field in one of those games. So phenomenal performance. Definitely a big ooh la la from me. And then
out of all the stuff that happened in cricket this week, we managed to pick the same thing.
I know.
I mean, it's
the same news sources.
Yeah, we're definitely both following the ICC cricket account on Twitter. I can tell you that much because that's where I saw it. And then my out of the week, I don't think I will have this. My out of the week goes to the Russian chess robot. I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was a Russian chess competition. I shouldn't laugh. There's a Russian chess competition, and for whatever reason, they brought this chess playing robot that can play 3 or 4 people at the same time and has this arm that goes around, and it broke a 7-year-old child's finger. So the crazy thing is that initially the officials blamed the child for violating safety rules and making his move before the robot had finished his. So that was the initial feedback, but later president of the Moscow Chess Federation, my man Sergei Lazarev, told reporters the robot broke the child's finger. This is bad. And I agree with Sergei, so that's my out of the week.
How? He just grabbed the kid's finger and broke it.
Yeah, like the robot went to go take a piece and went like this and lifted it up, and the child went in to make his next move, and the robot literally drops the piece, goes over and just grabs his finger for whatever reason. And it looks like it was traumatic. Everybody's rushing over to try and get this robot off his finger. I should add that the child was able to return later and finish the game with a bandaged finger.
There, a little pun intended there. Everyone was rushing over.
Oh,
Yes, it was rushing over it. Yes, exactly. I love it. So in other words, it had extra programming, like Death Robot programming. Yeah.
I only assume that it's an experiment to help them beat the Americans in the Cold War of chess.
We know the child came back one less finger, but was able to complete the the competition. Yeah. So there's your out. That's quite unique, Craig. I don't think anyone would have picked that one.
Nope.
Okay, so for me, my 6 is in the most recent Commonwealth Games competition for the women's T20 comp, is the amazing comeback that Australia produced against the India women's, when the Indian women team had Australia, I think, down for like 5 wickets down very early in the piece in the stage, and then it was just really methodical effort by the Australian women's team to sort of claw that back, and then win comfortably. So put a lot to Gardner and Harris. So they are my 6 for the week, and my outs is basically with the 100, the Northern Superchargers. The only out I've got there, or the fact it's an out, is there's no Aussie men. There's no Aussie men's. There's no Aussies playing in the squad at full stop for the Northern Superchargers, who I picked by default because of, like I said, my history. But yeah, no Aussies. So that's an out for me. There you go, guys.
No worries.
There's our 6 and outs. So there you guys. That was episode 1 for us. As you guys will see on the screen, we've got our socials there, so please follow us on Twitter. Give us your thoughts and feedback and anything you guys would like to discuss or chat, or would like us to discuss or chat in our future podcasts. We have a fantastic time doing this. In time, you'll start to see there'll be additional structure, more segments, more fun, more laughs. But yeah, we're having fun. We're looking forward to getting all of your input and your contributions as well, because yeah, we'd love to talk about some of the stuff and question and answer perhaps that you guys might want from us. So yeah, without further ado, I'd like to thank our mate Brett and our mate Craig. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
The good coverage today. I've always enjoyed it, and I enjoyed again talking about cricket. So thank you so much, guys. We will see you guys very shortly for the next episode of 6 and Out. Cheers.
See you guys.
Cheers, lads. See ya.